silver skin and diamond eyes, this supernatural girl.
Hey everyone, wow. I'm sitting here in my home studio, and I've got to tell you, I'm a little nervous. Not the bad kind of nervous, but that good kind, like when you're about to share something that really matters to you, and you hope the people listening, I hope you feel what I'm about to share with you. Welcome back, and my name is Fabian Starr, and this is the Later Lovers podcast. And if you're wondering about that name, the Later Lovers, it's about all of us who found our passion later in life, or maybe found it again after years away. It's about second chances, new beginnings, and proving that it's never too late to do the thing that makes your heart sing. So real quick, I gotta tell you guys what's happening this week because it's actually insane. We've got the first single from the remix album dropping next Wednesday, January 18th. But here's the thing, we just finished this music video for Satellite, and it's premiering on YouTube literally this coming Wednesday, the 15th, 3 days before the remix drops. And honestly, the response we've been getting on the original is already crazy. Like, we're seeing 200% growth on YouTube month over month. The song's in multiple playlists across Spotify. We just hit some milestones on Apple Music, and now we're dropping this video that we really poured into. So if you're listening to this, I want you to do me a favor. Wednesday morning, January 15th, hit YouTube and watch the Satellite music video premiere. Comment, share it, let me know what you think. Then 3 days later, the remix is live everywhere. And the whole vibe is going to be different, but I think you're going to feel it. This whole project has been building for a minute, and this is actually the moment where it's all coming together. So yeah, support the video, pre-save the remix. Links are going to be everywhere. And let's make this remix album something special together, because the body of work, this single, comes from drops sometime in April. But before we get there, I want to tell you something honest, something vulnerable. I almost didn't do this. Not the single, I mean this podcast, this moment where I'm talking to you, wherever you are. Maybe you're driving, maybe you're working out, maybe you're doing dishes or folding laundry. Wherever you are, thank you for being here. Because here's the thing, I spent most of my life thinking that nobody really cared about my story, that what I had to say wasn't interesting enough, wasn't important enough, wasn't enough. And maybe you felt that way too. Maybe you've had this thing inside you, this dream, this passion, this creative spark, and you've thought, who am I to do this? Who am I to put myself out there? I get it. I really do. But then I realized something. And this is going to sound simple, maybe even obvious, but it changed everything for me. Your story doesn't have to be the most dramatic story. It doesn't have to be the most impressive story. It just has to be your story. And somewhere out there, someone needs to hear it. Someone needs to know that they're not alone. Someone needs to know that it's possible. That's why I'm here. That's why we're doing this together. So if you're still with me, if you haven't clicked away yet, thank you. Sincerely. Because what I'm about to share with you, it's personal. It's real. And I hope it's going to resonate with you in ways that maybe you weren't expecting. And we're going to talk about music. We're going to talk about reimagining songs you already love and taking them somewhere new. We're going to talk about nightclubs in the 1990s and futuristic disco in 2026. But really, underneath all of that, we're going to talk about something much simpler. The courage to revisit your work and make it better. The courage to say, I can do this again, differently, and maybe even better than before. And we're going to talk about going back. going back to the place where it all started for me. A nightclub in Charleston called the Arcade Club, where I learned everything I know about how music makes people feel. Ready? Let's do this. So, Charleston, South Carolina, the 1990s, and a place called the Arcade Club. Close your eyes for a second if you can. Picture this. It's 1992, maybe 93. I'm in my early 20s and I'm working at the Gap at the Omni Hotel during the day. You remember the Gap, right? That was my life. Helping people find clothing and sometimes restocking the shelves. It was fine, it was a job, but it wasn't where I came alive, because at night I had this other job, this other life. I was the doorman. First I got promoted to be the lighting operator at the Arcade Club. Now, if you weren't part of the underground dance scene in Charleston in the 1990s, and honestly, not many people were, you probably don't know what the Arcade Club was. It wasn't famous. It wasn't in the guidebooks. It wasn't the kind of place that got written about in magazines or featured on MTV. It was just this magical little space tucked away on a side street called Liberty ST, where 500 people would gather on Friday and Saturday nights to lose themselves in house dance music. The building itself was nothing special. From the outside, you might walk right past it. But inside was a different world entirely. You'd walk through these glass doors of an old movie theater that had been transformed and immediately hit this wall of sound and light and heat. The bass was so loud you felt it in your chest before you heard it with your ears. The fog machines created this dreamlike haze that made everything feel slightly unreal, and the lights, my lights, cut through that haze in patterns and colors that transformed the entire space. And my job, my incredible, bizarre, wonderful job, was to control those lights and during the day come in and work with the DJ to program the sequences for songs. I'm talking about these big, programmable lighting boards, DMX controllers with all these faders and buttons and switches, rows and rows of them. Intimidating when you first looked at them, but once you understood the logic, once you understood how each fader controlled a specific light or group of lights, it became this incredibly expressive instrument. I could create these light shows that synchronized with the music, strobes that hit on every beat, color washes that swept across the room during breakdowns, moving pattern lights that created these hypnotic kaleidoscopic effects overhead, chase sequences where the lights would race around the perimeter of the club, getting faster and faster until they blurred into a continuous ribbon of color. And when I got it right, when the music and the lights were perfectly synchronized, when I anticipated the drop before it happened and had my hand on the strobe trigger ready to go, when the energy in the room and the energy in my lighting design were completely aligned, it was like conducting an orchestra. Except instead of violins and cellos, I had lasers and fog machines and a room full of people dancing like their lives depended on it. The music we played, God, the music. This was the high NRG era. If you know, you know. If you were there, if you lived through it, you understand. And if you weren't, let me try to paint the picture for you. We're talking about that high energy, synthesizer-driven sound that came out of the SAW, Stock Aitken Waterman, production factory in the UK. These were the guys who basically owned the pop charts in the late 80s and early 90s. Pet Shop Boys, Dead or Alive, Divine. Kylie Minogue before she was the global icon, Kylie Minogue when she was still just this girl from Australia making impossibly catchy pop songs, Bananarama, Rick Astley, Jason Donovan, that pounding 4/4 beat that just drove straight through your body, those soaring synth lines that felt like sunshine made into sound, those vocals that just grabbed you by the heart and didn't let go even when the song ended. But it wasn't just Saw. We were playing early house music from Chicago, Detroit techno with that raw industrial edge, Italo disco from Europe with those dramatic, almost operatic vocals, whatever made people move, whatever created that energy, whatever built that community feeling on the dance floor. And I wasn't just operating lights while this music played, I was absorbing it. I was learning it at a molecular level. Every beat, every transition, every build and drop and breakdown and climax, I was understanding not just what the songs sounded like, but why they sounded like that, how they were constructed, how they made people feel, how a great producer could manipulate emotion with nothing but synthesizers and drum machines and pure intention and understanding of human psychology. I didn't know it at the time, but I was getting an education that you couldn't buy at any music school, a masterclass in electronic music production and crowd psychology, delivered through a fog machine haze at 2 a.m. by the best teachers in the world, the music itself and the people responding to it. Here's what's crazy to me now, looking back with 30 years of perspective. I never thought of myself as a musician back then. I was just the lighting guy, the tech guy, the person behind the console, not on the stage, the support staff, not the artist. But I was so deeply connected to that music. It was in my DNA, in my bloodstream, and every single night I was creating this visual representation of sound. I was translating frequencies and rhythms into light patterns. I was making the invisible visible. I was taking something you could only hear and turning it into something you could see and feel. That's what lighting does at its best, right? It doesn't make sound, but it makes you see the sound. It makes you feel it in a completely different way. It gives sound a physical presence in space. Let me walk you through what that looked like in practice, because this is important for understanding where I'm coming from with my music now. This is where I learned everything about energy, about building and releasing tension, about creating moments that people would remember long after the night ended. The night would start around 10 p.m. Doors would open and the early arrivals would trickle in. These were the dedicated ones, the people who didn't want to miss a single minute. And the DJ, we had a few regulars who rotated, would start with something mid-tempo, something accessible, maybe 118, 120 BPM, warming up the crowd, setting the tone, creating an inviting atmosphere. And I'd match that with my lighting, keep things relatively simple at first. Some color washes, maybe blues and purples, cooler tones that created mood without overwhelming, maybe a slow rotating pattern overhead, some gentle movement to keep things interesting, nothing too intense. We're not trying to blow people away at 10:15 on a Friday night. We're inviting them in. We're saying, welcome, you're safe here, you're home. Then as the night progressed, as more people arrived, as the energy built naturally, the tempo would start to increase. 122 BPM, 125, 128, and my lighting would match that building energy. Faster chase patterns where the lights would race around the room. More strobes, but still controlled, still strategic. Brighter colors, reds and yellows, starting to come in alongside the blues and purples. More movement overhead, more layers of light creating more visual complexity. The room would transform gradually. What started as intimate and inviting would become energetic and exciting. The temperature would rise from the body heat of 200 people dancing. The fog would get thicker. the sound would get louder, and somewhere around midnight we'd hit that critical mass where the entire club would just ignite. That's the only word for it. Ignite, like the whole room crossed some threshold from this is fun to this is everything. But here's the key thing I learned. The thing that changed how I understand music production even today. The thing that's fundamental to how I create my tracks now. You can't just keep ramping up the energy forever. You can't stay at peak intensity for 4 straight hours. Physiologically, emotionally, it's impossible. You'll burn people out. You have to give them moments to breathe, moments to reset, moments to process what they're feeling. So the DJ would occasionally drop the beat out, bring it down to just a bass line and some atmospheric synths, let the crowd catch their breath, maybe play something a bit deeper, a bit more contemplative, let the energy settle for a minute or two, and I'd match that with my lighting. Pull everything back, maybe just one soft wash of blue light, maybe darkness with just a single spotlight on the DJ booth, making him the focal point, creating negative space, creating contrast, and then, and this is where the magic happened, the DJ would tease the next build. You'd start to hear the kick drum coming back in, quietly at first. A hi-hat pattern would emerge. A synth line would start to rise in volume. The bass would start to pulse more insistently, and I'd start bringing the lights back, slowly, gradually, building the anticipation, and then, boom, the beat would drop back in, harder than before, louder than before, and I'd hit every single light in the place at once. Strobes, moving heads, color washes, lasers, everything. The entire lighting rig firing at full power in perfect synchronization with that beat drop. And the crowd would erupt every single time without fail. People screaming, hands shooting up in the air, bodies jumping, pure, unfiltered joy and release. Because in that moment, that carefully constructed moment of buildup and anticipation and then explosive payoff, everyone felt something together. Everyone experienced this collective catharsis, that contrast, that dynamic range, that intentional use of space and silence, and then fullness. That's the secret to great dance music. That's what separates a good track from a transcendent track. That's what makes people lose their minds on a dance floor instead of just nodding along politely. I learned that by watching and doing and feeling night after night after night. The songs we played, let me give you a deeper dive into the era, because this is essential for understanding where my sound comes from. You Spin Me Round Like a Record by Dead or Alive, that opening drum fill that just announces itself with absolute confidence. Bam, 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 bam. And then that relentless energy that never ever lets up for the entire duration of the track. Every time that song came on, and it came on almost every single night at some point, I knew exactly what to do with the lights. Start dark, let the drums build the tension, and then hit the strobes hard on that iconic right round baby right round like a record baby part. The entire room would explode every single time. People who weren't even dancing yet would rush to the floor. It was like a Pavlovian response to that song. It's a Sin by Pet Shop Boys, those cathedral-like synths at the beginning, those massive, reverb-drenched chords that sound like they're echoing through a church, that sense of drama and guilt and liberation and forbidden pleasure all wrapped into one perfect pop song. I'd start that song with deep purple and red lights, create this moody, almost religious atmosphere, make it feel serious and important and heavy, and then, when the chorus hit and those synths opened up, I'd explode it into brighter colors, yellows and whites, liberation, absolution, going from darkness to light literally and musically at the same time. I Should Be So Lucky by Kylie, pure concentrated joy in 3.5 minutes, that ascending synth line at the beginning, those hand claps, that irresistible chorus, no darkness in this one, bright yellows and pinks from the start, happy colors, optimistic colors, summer colors, because that's what the song was about. Hope, possibility, new love, new beginnings. Finally, by C.C. Peniston. And, oh, I have a story about this one. Hold on, we'll get there in a minute. And what Stock Aitken Waterman figured out. What made those songs so enduring? What made them classics that people still love 30 plus years later was this incredible, almost obsessive attention to detail and craft. On the surface, if you're not listening carefully, those songs sound straightforward, simple even. 4-on-the-floor beat, catchy melody, memorable hook. Pop music fundamentals, right? Nothing revolutionary. Nothing that should still be resonating decades later. Wrong, so wrong. Those songs were crafted with surgical precision. Every single element was intentional. Nothing was accidental. Nothing was lazy. These guys understood pop music at a fundamental level that most producers never achieve. The kick drum patterns, and I'm going to get specific here because it matters, these weren't just any 4-on-the-floor patterns. Saw used this particular Roland TR 909 sound, and they processed it in a very specific way to get this perfect combination of deep thump that you felt in your chest and bright click that cut through the mix so you could hear it clearly even over the bass and synths and vocals. They'd layer it sometimes, double it up, add slight variations in velocity to create this breathing, living quality to what could have been a mechanical, repetitive element. And then there was that night. Let me tell you about one specific night, one specific moment that I think about constantly, especially now that I'm making my own music and reimagining my older work. It was probably 1994. Summers were always the best because the club was packed with people from out of town, tourists, people just discovering the scene. And this night, the DJ played Finally by C.C. Peniston. You know this song, right? Finally, it has happened to me right in front of my face. That gospel-influenced vocal, that absolutely massive, life-affirming chorus. And when that chorus hit, when Cece's voice just soared over those strings in that beat, I did something I'd never done before, something risky. I killed all the lights. Complete blackness. Just for one beat, one single beat of total darkness. And then I brought everything up at once. Strobes, color washes, moving lights, everything. The entire lighting rig firing at full power. And the room went absolutely insane. People were screaming, crying, dancing harder than I'd ever seen people dance, hugging strangers, hands in the air. Some people fell to their knees. It was this collective catharsis, this release of pure emotion. Because in that moment, that split second of darkness, followed by an explosion of light, everyone felt something together. Everyone experienced this shared revelation, this confirmation that yes, finally, it has happened to us. Whatever it was for each person. Love, acceptance, joy, freedom, community. That's when I understood the power of contrast, the power of taking something away so that when you bring it back, it means more. It hits harder. It matters more. And that lesson, that fundamental understanding of dynamics and contrast, that's in every song I make now. That's in every remix I create. That's in the single I'm releasing on January 23rd. I'll pull elements out of the mix. I'll strip a track down to just vocals and bass, let you miss the other elements, and then bring everything back in, boom, and create that emotional impact. That's not something you learn from a tutorial. That's something you learn from experience. From watching a room full of people respond to sound and light and energy. From being part of something bigger than yourself. And night after night, I'd watch these people on the dance floor. People from all walks of life. Straight people, gay people, black, white, Latino, Asian. It didn't matter. Rich people, poor people, young people, older people. When that music hit, when those lights synchronized, everyone was just free. Everyone was connected. Everyone was home. That's what I remember most. Not the technical stuff, not the equipment specs. I remember the faces. I remember the joy. I remember this one guy, I never knew his name, who would show up every Saturday night and dance in the exact same spot, right in front of the DJ booth. He'd close his eyes and just go, completely lost in it, week after week, year after year. And I remember thinking, that's it. That's what this is all about. That moment of pure, unself-conscious joy, that freedom, that connection to something larger than yourself. The arcade club closed down eventually. These things always do, right? The building got sold, the scene moved on, people grew up and moved away. By the late 90s, I'd moved on too. I got into television production, worked on shows like Homeland and House of Cards. I had a career, I had a life, but somewhere deep inside, there was this part of me that never left that lighting booth, that never stopped hearing those songs, that never stopped feeling that energy. And for about 30 years, that part of me just kind of waited. Fast forward to 2024. I'm 52 years old. Let that sink in for a second. 52. More than half a century on this planet. And I'm thinking about music again, not just listening to it, not just missing it, actually creating it. And I did. I started making music, using AI tools like Suno and Udio to help me create instrumentals, then adding my own vocals. I'm a spinto tenor, writing my own lyrics, applying all those production techniques I learned at the arcade club. And it worked. It actually worked. I released an album called The Later Lovers, and people connected with it. Really connected with it. I built up 15.8 thousand monthly listeners on Spotify, over 32,000 YouTube subscribers. One of my tracks, Digital Love, got 71 radio spins across multiple countries. Another one, Hearts Unite, Club Mix, ranked number 34 out of 12,253 tracks on DJ Pools. I'm getting radio play in 62 countries, Brazil, Turkey, Germany, countries I've never even been to. And these aren't fake streams or bot plays. These are real people choosing to listen to my music. But here's what's really beautiful about this. The feedback I got, the messages from listeners, the comments on YouTube, the emails, people telling me which tracks meant something to them, which songs they played on repeat, which moments in the album really landed. And there was one song, one track from the Later Lovers album that just kept coming up over and over again. People loved it. It resonated in this deep way that even I didn't fully anticipate when I made it. And I started thinking, what if I could take that song and push it further? What if I could take what worked about it and amplify it? What if I could reimagine it with everything I've learned since I originally created it? What if I could give it the arcade club treatment? Because here's the thing about being an artist, and I'm still getting used to calling myself that, but that's what this is. You're never really done with a song. A song is just a snapshot of where you were creatively at a specific moment in time. And as you grow, as you learn, as you develop your skills, you look back at previous work and you think, I could do that better now. I could take it somewhere new. That's not about being dissatisfied with the original. The original is what it needed to be, when it needed to be that. But now I can see new possibilities in it. So I decided to completely remake it, not just tweak it, not just remaster it, completely reimagine it from the ground up. Same lyrics, same vocal melody, same emotional core, but everything else different, evolved, enhanced. I took the tempo up slightly, added more dynamic movement, more of those build and release moments I learned about at the arcade club. Brought in some futuristic disco elements. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Made the production bigger, bolder, more confident. And when I finished it, when I listened to it all the way through for the first time, I cried. I'm not ashamed to admit that. I cried because I realized this is what the song always wanted to be. This is the version that's been waiting to exist. And that's what's coming out on January 23rd. That's the single. A complete reimagining of one of your favorite tracks from the later Lovers. But before I tell you which song it is, before I play you an exclusive preview that nobody else has heard yet, I want to talk about what's coming next, what this single is building toward. Because this isn't just a one-off remix. This is the beginning of something much bigger, an entire album coming in April 2026, an album called Back to the Arcade. Back to the Arcade. 3 words that mean everything to me, because that's what this album is. It's me going back, literally and metaphorically, to that place where I learned to understand music, to that place where I watched people lose themselves in sound and light, to that place where I discovered that music isn't just about notes and rhythms, it's about creating moments, creating feelings, creating community. But here's the thing, I'm not just recreating the past. I'm not making a nostalgia album where I try to sound exactly like 1993. That would be pointless. The past is the past. What I'm doing is taking the energy, the techniques, the understanding from that era and running it through 2026. I'm asking, what would the arcade club sound like if it existed today? What would those high NRG tracks sound like if they were made with modern technology, modern production techniques, modern sounds? The answer is futuristic disco. Let me explain what I mean by that because it's important. Disco never really died, you know? It just evolved. It became house music. It became high NRG. It became electroclash. It became new disco. And now, in 2026, it's becoming something new again. Something that honors the tradition. That 4-on-the-floor pulse, those string sections, those vocal arrangements, that sense of euphoria and release, but pushes it forward into new sonic territory. Futuristic disco is what happens when you combine the energy and structure of classic disco, the production precision of SAW-style high NRG, modern synthesizer, sounds and effects, AI-assisted production that allows for sonic textures that weren't possible in the analog era, vocals that soar and harmonies that envelop you. It's retro and future at the same time. It's familiar and alien. It's comforting and challenging. The Back to the Arcade album has this sound running through most of it. High energy, up-tempo tracks that make you want to move, that make you want to close your eyes and just let go, like that guy at the arcade club who danced in the same spot every Saturday night. But it's not all up-tempo, it's not all party, because the arcade club wasn't all party either. There are moments, usually late in the night, around 3 a.m., when the energy would shift, when things would get more introspective, more emotional, when people would slow dance with partners, when the masks would come down and people would be vulnerable with each other. those moments need to be on the album too. So Back to the Arcade also has these dramatic ballads, these slower, more emotionally raw tracks that show a different side of the experience. Imagine being on a dance floor at 3 a.m., exhausted but happy, and a slow song comes on. Something beautiful and sad and hopeful all at once. And you put your arms around someone, maybe someone you love, maybe someone you just met, maybe yourself, and you just sway, and you feel everything, all the joy and pain and hope and fear and love that you've been dancing away all night. That's what those ballads capture. So, the album is this journey. It starts with high energy, futuristic disco tracks that grab you immediately. Then it takes you through different emotional landscapes. Some tracks are pure joy, some are bittersweet, some are dramatic and intense. And then it brings you back to euphoria at the end, just like a night at the arcade club. Now, I mentioned earlier that I'm reimagining songs from the later Lovers album for this project, and I want to be clear about what that means. The single coming January 23rd, the remake I've been talking about, that's the first one, and the response from people who've heard early versions has been incredible. People who loved the original are telling me they love this version even more, because it's bigger, it's bolder, it's more of what the original hinted at. And there's another one coming before the April album release, a remake of An Ocean Drive, which has been one of your absolute favorites. I see the streaming numbers. I see the comments. I know that song means something special to a lot of you, so I'm giving it the full treatment. Futuristic disco production, enhanced vocal arrangements, more dynamic range, more of everything that made the original work, amplified and evolved. When you hear the An Ocean Drive remake, you're going to understand immediately what this album is about. It's about honoring what worked while pushing it into new territory. It's about respecting the past while creating something for the present and future.